Sherry. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Completely forgot about that, about recording the event. Once again, it's a pleasure to welcome you all here today. Let's see, my apologies. It is my pleasure to introduce Sherry Brady, who is one of our Board of Instigator members since 2015. Sherry, when she's not instigating, is a Vice President of Strategy and Programs at the Children's Defense Fund. In her role, she leads and coordinates CDF's programs in services of the CDF vision of a nation where marginalized children flourish. Leaders prioritize their well-being, and communities wield the power to assure that they thrive. Sherry, thank you so much for moderating today. I'm going to pass it on to you so you can get us started with the panel.
Thanks so much, Tamira. Can everybody hear me? Speaking shortly to front of mic. Sound good? Great. Hi, as Tamira said, I'm Sherry Brady. I'm glad to be here with you all for this hour. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I'm excited to hear from the panel. Let me just give you a little bit of framing about sort of the goals of this. We really want to have a conversation to really sort of talk a little bit about what youth organizing is, and to really sort of highlight the difference between sort of as a part of youth engagement and understanding really how we get to real systemic change when engaging youth in an authentic way that really gets them involved. So this chart is a chart of a continuum of how you can engage youth in the work. It was developed by the Funders Collaborative of Youth Organizing in about 2003, and it's still sort of the best that we have to work with around there. And there are sort of 4 developmental levels that you can think about to your youth engagement approach as an organization. And it moves from intervention to development to collective empowerment and then systemic change. And really, youth services approach is really sort of where you're really just intervening and you're providing services and direct services to youth to help them deal with a particular problem, a particular way to for treatment or prevention of the work. There's youth development that really occurs when youth leaders and adult allies get together and create conditions for the youth to be able to build their skills and capacities to empower them to really be able to solve some problems on their own. You move into, to youth leadership that really has, and each component builds on the other, I should say that. And so youth leadership, which really occurs when youth receive the education, training, and other forms of support to encourage they need from adult allies and other youth leaders to really move beyond personal problem solving, to really started understanding and thinking about root causes and thinking about systemic change and how you can get there. And that includes sort of youth civic engagement, which is really thinking about how you get them actively involved in public policy making, public problem solving, and civic processes and causes, from voting to really thinking about ways that they can meet with traditional policymakers and create change and talk about an agenda that they develop themselves to do that. And then youth organizing, which is really about systemic change and really about ownership of the work, really occurs when youth leaders and adult allies really create the conditions to self-identify their problems and really provide the solutions, because as we know, those who are closest to the problems are often closest to the solutions. So we really want to focus on that end of the spectrum. And I think I'll speak for Sherry, I won't speak for BOI or CDF at this point, but really we always want to move to the right of any of these kind of continuums, because it's really about empowering and giving ownership to those who are closest to the problem. So that's sort of the frame in which we're working with. We're going to talk with some dynamic young leaders and adult allies in this call. So I'm actually going to turn it over to them to introduce themselves. I am going to start with the youth organizers, asking them, the panelists, to introduce themselves. So Swan, I'm going to ask if you would start, and then we'll move to Okoya, and then we'll move to our adult allies.
Hello, everyone. My name is Swan, and I'm the lead organizer with the Black Swan Academy.
Can you speak up a little? It's a little hard to hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm Swan Dubose, and I'm the lead organizer with the Black Swan Academy. I've been in Black Swan. I started off as a youth organizer, and I am now the lead organizer.
Thank you.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hi, I'm Ayoka Miller Akiemi. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a youth organizer and a youth advisory board member of the DC Girls Coalition.
So, and then I'm gonna turn to Christy to talk a little bit about DC Girls Coalition. And can you just give us a little background too on the organization, Christy, when you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? My name is Christy Matthews Jones. I go by she, her, queen, warrior pronouns, and I'm the director of DC Girls Coalition. Girls Coalition is a reestablished coalition that was reestablished in 2019 that focuses on empowering young girls of color, transgender girls of color, and gender nonconforming people of color in DC to do advocacy and organizing work on a variety of issues. We are led and managed by our youth advisory board that is made up of 9 young people of color in DC, as well as we have a large youth DC network and also coalition members in a youth serving organization, whether it's through advocacy, providing a service, policy, as members of our coalition. And we do campaigns on a variety of issues, including youth agency, allowing young people at age 16 to be able to have control over their education, their bodies, and their housing. We also do advocacy and organizing around mandatory reporting, trying to make sure it's anti-racist, anti-homophobic, and more supportive of young people of color. We do a significant amount of organizing around mental health in a variety of ways. And we just really try to make sure we create space and opportunity for young girls of color, young people of color in general, to be in front of city leaders and really uplifting issues impacting them, but also solutions they've come up with on their own.
Thank you. Samantha?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Samantha Davis. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the executive director with Black Swan Academy. Black Swan Academy, we really got started in 2013, 2014, and we support Black youth, middle school and high school age, in creating change in their communities through advocacy and organizing work. Most of that work is done in 2 ways. One is through our Black Youth Agenda, an agenda that our youth membership establishes every other year. They come together, they vote on the issues that are most pressing to them, and then the solutions through policies and practices that they want to move forward in their communities. And then second, through our coalition work. And so with some of the issues that are established through the Black Youth Agenda, as they might cycle off, we either build up coalitions or sustain campaigns around them, such as our Police Free Schools Coalition, or we support other coalitions that young people have identified are core to their needs, such as reestablishing DC Girls Coalition or supporting with Vote 16, and so on and so forth. So those are the 2 ways that we lift up and support, enhance the voices of Black youth in DC mostly, and really proud and excited to be here.
Great, thank you. Glad to be here with all of you. So I'm gonna open up with a question for all of you and ask sort of, just talk to us a little bit about how you were called to organizing. Let's start with, I'm going to start with, I think, Akoya on this one. What called you to sort of get involved in organizing?
Okay, and it's Ayoka.
Ayoka, I'm sorry, I knew that.
It's okay, it's okay. So at first I started with attending DC Girls Coalition open meetings. Like I wasn't part of the organization yet. So I attended their open meetings they had with youth, and it was me and my little brother and like 2021 maybe, and I was interested to share like my thoughts and opinions on stuff going on in school revolving around mental health and stuff. And I felt like the coalition led me to be comfortable enough to keep sharing more with them. And then eventually I was asked to be a youth advisory board member in 2022, and since then the adult ally has been supporting me in the experience of being a youth organizer, and like it led me to build the experience to have leadership roles and developing skills that will help me and other young people make a change in DC. Thank you.
Thank you. Sion?
So yeah, as I said in my introduction, I was called to organize it in seventh grade. I was called by my counselor who saw me struggling a little, and so they asked me to join Black Swan. And we started doing a lot of different work around like dress code and like suspensions and like dress codes and stuff like that. And all of those things I like struggling with because I stayed in trouble because of my uniform, or I stayed getting suspended or something. So it was really small things. So we started doing a work around it, and I realized like my voice really mattered, and I saw a change happening. And so I kept going, and yeah, now here I am, leading other young people.
Thank you. Samantha, you want to talk to us a little bit about, you talked about the work of Black Swan and some of the programs. Just talk to us about what called you to sort of start Black Swan, to be in this space.
Sure. So we started Black Swan Academy in the aftermath of the Trayvon Martin verdict, right? So Trayvon Martin, 17-year-old Black boy, shot and killed in Florida. And at that time, I was 24 years old, so a young person myself, feeling really disheartened, really distraught about not just the incident itself, but then what happened afterwards, seeing the continued criminalization of Black young people, seeing the devaluing of their voice, of their work, and wanting to create a place where Black youth in our community, myself included, had the tools and the skills to be able to lead, to be able to get involved in systemic work, but also to create the opportunities, realizing that even in movement spaces, it was difficult for a young person to kind of find our space, find our role in our agency. So not just about the skills building, while that is important, it was also about making sure we were able to apply those skills in a meaningful way. And doing so by working with the most marginalized among us. And so when we first got started, we got started at Sousa Middle School, where Sion went, and we're really intentional about working with the young people who were impacted most in DC. At the time, that tends to be young people in Ward 7 and Ward 8. We know it's all over DC, but kind of starting there and building up and following their lead on how we expand, on the issues that we work on how we're hiring people, so on and so forth, which is how Sion kind of moved through the pipeline of youth member to staff member, and really, really valuing their voice and their leadership.
Thank you. Christy?
Do you want me to talk about what called me to organizing or what brought me to DC Girls Coalition?
Which brought you to organizing, and if you want to then talk about sort of why you talked a lot about the work that the coalition does, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I've been organizing for a very long time. I think originally what brought me to organizing was my family. I grew up in North Carolina, and I grew up with my majority of my family experiencing poverty, specifically. But I think what really made me realize that we had to fight the system is when I was very young, my brother passed away from leukemia. And what I saw was a lack of healthcare reform and a lack of things happening for him that could have prevented his death while he had leukemia. He did not die from leukemia, he died from a virus that could have been prevented if we had better healthcare. So I think that really started the spark, and I went to college and it kind of just grew from there. Youth organizing has always been a passion of mine. I used to organize young people in North Carolina who were immigrants from war-torn countries, and really seeing how there was the forced division amongst them, and people telling them not to trust Black people in their neighborhood, telling Black people not to trust them, and wanting to fight that forced division. And I think that is how I got involved in advocacy. And then I moved to DC, where I worked with homelessness issues for a significant amount of time, but also was always pulled to organize young people. So I did work at Black Swan Academy for a couple of years as a lead instructor. And so when the opportunity presented itself for me to get back into that work, get back to working with young people, I jumped at the chance because I really do see the power in engaging young people to shift our future. That's where actual change occurs, when we have new people, new blood, and young people experiencing the dang things directly, coming up with the solution.
Christy, yeah, I think we, I think Christy froze. It's not just on me, right? Okay, so we will, oh, you froze a little at the end there, Christy, but I think we got.
Oh, I was done.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I'm gonna ask, Sion to start with this one. I talked a little bit in the continuum and that talked a little bit about the definition of youth organizing from the perspective of this continuum that we created. But can you tell us a little bit about how you would define youth organizing and why you think it's so important for you to be engaged here?
I would define youth organizing as I would define youth organizing as like using your experience and some of the skills that you learn from like adult organizers to be able to build a base of other young people to share their stories and their experience. I'm a firm believer that like experience is like the number one source, and you can't really beat experience when it comes to issues and telling your stories and things like that. And I think I always say we're better in numbers, and I think building the base and being able to build a base and bring in other young people to be able to share your experiences and connect through the same experiences and issues, and be able to advocate and like organize against them.
Great. I think something that resonated with everyone's answer was that it started with a problem that impacted you. Like self-interest is definitely, and self-reliance is definitely a piece that plays a role, I think, in the organizing space. So that's very helpful. Ayuka, do you want to jump in there?
Oh, can y'all hear me? Because it had froze a little bit.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so I want to tie to what Sion said. I think like from the support from adult allies, that they guiding the youth and like encouraging to be who they are and share their voice. And I think the skills that they learn from the adult allies, like advocacy skills, social network skills, or other skills that develop them to speak out and to sit with policymakers and lawmakers and to share their voice and share what's impacting them and to make a change in youth lives. So I think that ties into youth organizing, youth having the choice to speak up, having a choice to sit at the table, having a choice to make a change. Thank you.
That's great. I'm gonna you spoke a little bit, Ayuka, on talking about supports that you thought were really helped you become successful in being a youth organizer and getting to this space. I'm actually gonna ask Samantha to talk a little bit about the kind of supports that you guys provide to the organizers who you are sort of working with to build their base. Let's talk about the supports you give them to help them be successful.
Yeah, so can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, perfect. So we offer, we start in middle school when we kind of think about building our base. And so middle schoolers, 6th through 8th grade, that go to the schools that we work directly with, they are a part of a 36-week kind of program or go through a 36-week curriculum, I will say. With that, the skills that young people are developing in that space goes on our values of pride, purpose, and power. So we say Black youth should be proud about who they are and where they come from, that they have a purpose in their community, and that they have the power to create systemic change. What that looks like in terms of skills development goes from leadership development, a sense of building out and identifying for yourself who you are, how you want to show up, what's important to you. Also goes through Black history. So we have a core understanding of our history as Black people within this country and outside of this country. Purpose is really looking at starting to do some of that community building work, starting to do that issue identification, the community mapping, really ensuring that young people can connect to the people, the structures within their communities and how they show up in their lives. And then power is where we really flex our muscles around public speaking, around understanding the systems, the legislative process, understanding movements and what shows up there. There's a lot of practice in building out our Black youth agenda and researching the issues that are impacting us, so it goes beyond our experience to the collective experience and impact that various social inequities have on us. And so that's kind of the skills building and the teachings that we provide for young people. I said middle school, but that also goes through high school as well. And then in addition to that, it is kind of making the connections, inviting them to coalition spaces, having them or scheduling the meetings for them to speak to electeds or partners or other organizers. It's sending them to, Sion just went to, where'd you go? Denver. Last week with a youth organizer, one of our now 12th, 11th graders, Anisha, to meet other youth organizers doing work in education justice. So it's providing those types of opportunities to them. And then also knowing that we are human first. And so since COVID, we have also been supporting our youth members with mutual aid and helping to meet kind of some of the direct needs as best as our abilities.
Great, thank you. And Samira just put in the chat as well, for more information about the programming at Black Swan Academy. She put a link there so you can just learn more about the work that they're doing. I will go back to you, Christy, but Sion, can you talk a little bit about some of the supports and experience that you've had that have helped sort of build your capacity as a youth organizer, or just picking up on Samantha talking about the experience that you just had in Denver, which is one of my favorite cities. But you know, that's got my favorite bookstore in it. And so would love to hear a little bit about the supports that you have found most helpful in your success to sort of get to the point where you are.
Okay. Some supports. I'm first I'm gonna talk about our adult supports throughout the years. We with the adult supports, like they've taught me, like give me skills in public speaking, where I have developed skills on being able to like be on panels and town halls, but also plan them and all of that, and plan like community events and things of that nature. But I also was like given opportunities to travel a lot. I do travel a lot. I was given opportunities to go and do a couple panels in New York. I've also was given the opportunity to learn deeper into my ancestral history and travel to Ghana. I think that was last year. Yeah. And in those experiences, I was able to gain skills, but also like unforgettable experiences in like other forms of organizing beyond like in the political aspect, but also in like self-care type of organizing. And it was a lot, but yeah, the support, yeah, all of that.
That's great. It sounds like you're having some great experiences. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Christy, I want to give you a chance to talk about the supports that the coalition is also providing for your organizers and the work that's happening.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me? Okay, so we provide a lot of the supports that Samantha talked about, but I think the other thing that we also try to do is we try to respond similar to Black Swan to the needs that young people express in that moment. So about a couple of years ago, we started to provide Healing Circle series. Many of our young people expressed not having the coping skills or knowing how to deal with the trauma of the pandemic and or of school in general. So we develop a coping skills series that allows them to address those issues. I also think the other pieces that we do is we try to create our any event we do, any activity we do, we provide space for our young people to help co-plan those events. They are the ones who come up with the agenda. They are the ones who come up with what will happen. We try to explore any action or activity they want to do as best we can. I think that is really, really important. I think a lot of organizations, while like need to understand that the biggest, strongest way to develop organizers is allowing them to do it, which may mean a little bit more work on the front end of like making sure that everyone is in the space and everyone, you're like giving them the skills to lead the thing, but it also creates the future leaders for the work. And so we try very, very hard to create the capacity and space to like talk through, this is how you plan a town hall, this is how you do these different pieces, and therefore which one can you do. We provide one-on-one support to our young people where they can, like, all of our young people have my cell phone, for example, as well as our youth ambassador cell phone, and they can call us for anything. We've had young people call us, similar to Black Swan, where they couldn't focus on the advocacy work because they had a personal need. And we try our best to fulfill and support that personal need when we can, how we can. I think that when you're trying to organize young people who are struggling through poverty or struggling to just being Black and brown in the United States of America, it's important to understand that sometimes those struggles need to be addressed before they can be strong advocates and organizers. And it's your duty as an adult ally to address them as best you can when you can.
Thank you. Well said. Getting much props in the chat. So I want to thank you. And also, there's also a link that was in the chat to learn more about DC Girls Coalition's work there. That's Samara put in the chat. Ayuka, I want to talk to you a little bit about, ask a little bit about sort of what has been the, what has been the sort of the most impactful experience that you've had so far in the work that you've been doing, your organizing work?
The most impactful thing has been being allowed to like sit in meetings or summits with city leaders and them encouraging us to speak up and to share like what's really impacting us and other youth in DC, and just having the support of not being ashamed of speaking up as youth, because how can I say this? Like, it's basically a generational thing where youth have to be quiet or you don't have no say in what's impacting them. And I feel like the adult allies and other organizations have been encouraging youth to speak up and share how they feel. And I really love that support.
That's great. I'm going to ask you a follow-up if, so I think you hit on this, to expand a little bit on why do you think it's important for Black and brown youth to be trained as organizers and lead the change happening for them?
I think it's important because they get the experience of how can I say this? They get the experience of actually being in a setting of making a change. And I think sometimes you do need the steps, or I don't know, the education before doing it. So you need to learn on how to talk to city officials, how to write a testimony, how to write an email. And I think that all Black and brown and other youth should be able to have the experience and the resources to learn that before they share how they feel and make a change.
Great, that's great. Well said. Sian, I'd like to ask you the same question about sort of why you think it's important.
To piggyback off of Ayoka, I feel like it's important for Black and brown youth to organize and be in this work, because even just being Black and brown in itself has always been a struggle. It's always been a struggle to speak and be heard and for things to move. But even as youth, it's even harder because you, like Ayoka said, that we're always told to stay in the child's place. You don't know what you're talking about. You just hear you hear adults speaking. You don't really know what you're talking, like all of that. And it's always and like in this, and I feel like in this space it's easier for us to come and speak and know that we are being heard and that things are happening, and are moving, and like, yeah, like yeah, it's a lot of moving parts to it. It's a lot of like knowing, yeah, it's important. Yeah, it's just, I feel like, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's just, we've always been quiet, and it's important for us to speak and be heard, and like to keep pushing and organizing. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It's just, I'm just so, yeah, we've always been quiet, and it's important for us to speak, because like this is the time. There's so much going on. This is the time for us to be heard.
That was great. Thank you. I think that's great. So I would love to hear a little bit more from some of the adult allies. There's two of them called, and people on chat if they have questions. Please, please don't hesitate to ask questions as well in the chat. Talk a little bit about why you think it's important for adult allies to get out of the way, and what are some tips that you can help that you can share with adult allies who really think they're being helpful. Really, I think don't want to let go sometimes. It's something that we have to all work out, I think, in ways to sort of why it's important for us to really let go as adult allies and let young people be in the front speaking about the issues and the concerns they have, and some tips that can really help with that. I want to start with you, Christy, since you're off. I saw you off mute first, and then we'll go to Samantha.
Yeah, so I think that, first of all, I think it's important because honestly, some of us have been doing this for so long that we're reinventing a wheel that is done. Like, young people have so many fresh new ideas, and honestly, what they're bringing to the table is actively getting change. And so that's one of the reasons I think it's important for young people to be leading the fight. I also think it's important because whether you're like a strong, powerful, radical person, the more you're in this work, the more sometimes you can get jaded and feel like none of this is gonna change, nothing is gonna happen. And so you get used to doing specific things for specific groups. Like, you get used to, if I want to shift council, I need to have a meeting with them. If I want to shift agency, I need to like show up at their doorstep. But young people who haven't been experiencing those things can often bring new ideas, new ways of shifting what needs to happen to the table. And I think that is really important. And I think that for the biggest advice I can have for people who are organizing young people is that you can plan an event through and through, and the day it's gonna happen, however it's gonna happen, change. Things are gonna go the way they're gonna go. I think we try to do a very good job of prepping our young people, but I know both me and Samantha have had young people show up on the day of who want to speak, who want to talk out, and we've done the 2-minute prep in the hallway because they're ready and they want to speak and they need that space. So I think you have to be flexible. You have to know, like, you're going to have to meet young people where they are, at what time they are. They might tell you, I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak. And the day of the event, they get motivated, they get ready. They want to be one of the speakers, and be flexible in that and let it happen the way that it's going to happen. And I think that if we want society to stop being so broken, we need new voices at the table to be making things happen. And that's why you should be uplifting young people and putting them in leadership roles to make decisions. That is crucial. And this is what I'll end with, because I'm probably going over my time, but oftentimes organizations already have the plan of what they're going to do, and they plug young people in to be the speaking people for that plan. That is not going to work. Young people need to be deciding what the plan is. And sometimes that's going to be like, for you, like, okay, y'all, I don't know about this. I got an event coming up on Saturday that my young people wanted to do. I wasn't sure about, but they were right. And it's going to be very great. But that's where you have to step back and you have to like let go, because they got this in ways you will never imagine.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And also, not letting perfect be the enemy of the good. I find myself in my day job being like, no, it has to be perfect. I'm like, sometimes it just has to be what it is. But thank you, Samantha.
Absolutely. Everything that Christy just said, what I will lift up from that is, as an adult, regardless of how much of an adult you are, I'm still fairly young, but I've been in organizing spaces for a very long time. And what that means is, when we look at what organizing at its core is, in terms of centering the most marginalized, being led by the people who are impacted, I, Samantha Davis, am no longer impacted by the same issues that impact our young people. Therefore, I am not the expert. Adults need to realize that y'all are not the expert. We are not the expert. And with that alone, it means that we need to move out of the way to ensure that those who are the true experts, who are closest to the issue, can truly be free to do what they know is best for them. What that also means, though, is that I see sometimes with that in mind, in similar situations where we think about allyship, some people feel like, okay, I'm going to be completely hands off. I'm going to leave them off to the whims and just, not support or insert myself in any way. That is not what adult allyship is. We are still a part of this community. We are still committed to the betterment of young people and to supporting their ideas and their needs fully. And so that still means we have to be involved. That still means that we have to support and prep and agitate and challenge and help them think critically and help them improve on the ideas that they already have, versus just letting go completely. And I actually don't think there's a thin line there. I think it's very clear in how we need to show up for young people and encourage people to do that. The other thing in terms of letting go is, I know some of the hesitance is adults feel as if, and I think Sion pointed it out, that young people just don't have enough experience to do the things. And that might be true, but that's no different than any adult or any person that enters into a new role, right? And so the same way you would train and prep your new employee who comes in is the same way that we need to train and prep and support the young people who are coming in. So if you're hesitant to move out the way because young people might not have all the skills, that's actually a calling for you. Has nothing to do with the young people. That means that you need to step up and do more to ensure that young people have the skills necessary to be successful and to thrive.
Thank you.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you. You both said a whole lot. Thank you. I'm going to the question. Sapna had a question in the chat. I think you hit on a little bit, Sian and Akoya. And Akoya, she wanted to know if you could share a possibility moment, sort of a moment that has inspired you in your work or angered you, that really gave you more fire and fuel to go on. Both of you talked a little bit in your introductions when I asked sort of what you got here about sort of the things that made you sort of start organizing, but have there been sort of some pivotal moment, a pivotal thing that's happened that's sort of been like, yes, I'm on the right track, I need to keep doing this, that has sort of helped fuel the fire? Because I would imagine also this work can be very tiring in the sense of sometimes it feels like a slog, and where do you find those moments to keep you going in the work? Let's start with Sion.
Okay, so the moment, I think it was a while ago. I mean, we were working on a campaign, I believe it was called Suspend Suspensions, where we were speaking on how youth, specifically Black and brown youth, were being suspended for like numerous days, missing education time over things such as like uniform or like arguments with teachers or disrupting the class. It became like they were like missing 5, maybe 10 days of school. And so we had worked on it and worked with city leaders to where I believe we had passed a bill called the Fair Access to School Act. Well, maybe it was the Mayor Act. I forgot which one. It's a mix-up. We worked on both, but where they had basically said that youth can't be suspended from school for an excessive amount of days based off things such as like uniform or disruption. It would have to be something that put people in danger. And it would take a lot of paperwork to get, like, we basically stopped students from being suspended so much. And so it helped me a lot because I stopped being suspended so much. But I see that even though there was a process, I did see that something happened and the change did happen. And that was, that was it. That was my moment where I felt like my work actually is paying off and my voice is actually being heard.
Thank you. I'm gonna get this right. Ayoka. Yes.
Yes, so it's okay.
Um, please also give us, that is amazing. Thank you so much for that. But Ayoka, also give us your sort of that pivotal moment for you or the thing that keeps you going.
That moment for me was okay. Y'all know how city officials, that's the like during budget season, that's the only time you could talk to them. Like really try not even talk to them, probably a representative, but try to like get a close connection to them. So basically, this last budget season, with the DC Girls Coalition, we started writing testimonies and lists that we could share with them to revolving about mental health, sanitation, and other things. And I think that moment when we was meeting with different city leaders, when I shared my part was mental health, where I shared like the importance of mental health in schools revolving around youth. I think that was the like main breaking point when I say that when I saw that like I'm in this, I'm making a change, I'm sharing my voice, and I think that the support also guided me through that. And when I wrote my testimony on mental health, and I really had to think about like how is impacting youth, how is it impacting me per se, and just sharing the experience of what I see in school and when I see it outside the school in the communities, like how children just don't feel the need to be present in school just because they're not getting the resources they should be allocated to. And I just like that was the main point that really impacted me. And yeah.
That is great. I want to follow a lead here. Some that you talked about. I think both Christy and Samantha and folks talked about sort of when you can get out of the way and what you can do. What about organizations? I hear this a lot when we talk about ready or DEI work, as well as sort of thinking about active and authentic youth engagement and organizing. We're not ready. We don't know enough. We can't do it until we know everything. We got to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So I'm asking all the panelists, and you can start wherever. Sort of, what do you say to organizations to be like? You don't have to be an expert, but here's one starting point. Here's a place where you can start or think about that. So I feel like that's often an excuse we do to like get paralyzed by indecision. So how can you help organizations who want to do this work and do it well, get off the indecision pot and move forward?
That's a great question. One of the offerings I have for organizations who are working directly with young people, or whoever your like community is to hold a meeting with those young people, with those constituents, and simply involve them into the assessment of your work. Ask them what it is about your work that they love, what it is that you all can improve upon, and start kind of collecting their ideas. The challenge, I think, and that is, I feel like really literally like the first step that you can do. If you want to go a little bit beyond that, I think making a commitment and communicating that commitment to those young people on one of those ideas that comes out of that space that you all start implementing or piloting within that next fiscal year or within the next quarter, whatever that might be. And just getting used to what it looks like to involve young people into the decision-making process, into the programming and planning with something that is low lift, lightweight, and getting your young people used to actually being involved in those processes and being heard, I think will go a long way and will kind of help you say, oh, this is what it could look like. This is like the possibility that will come from it. For Black Swan, when we very first got started, young people, we were going through like issue identification, and the water crisis in Flint was like very much present for us. And young people really wanted to dive into that issue. I was honestly probably pulling them back. Like, this is Flint, this isn't happening in DC. Like, what are y'all talking about? What do you want to do? And it ended with young people convincing us and the board, because they also weren't fans of it, to go to Flint, Michigan, for 3 days and support the families and community members in North Flint, Michigan. And that is something that started off very small, and ended up really being the catalyst to most of the work that we're doing now in terms of the Black Youth Agenda, and having that youth-led policy platform.
That's great. Other panelists want to jump in to answer that, Christy?
I just want to say I agree with everything that Samantha says, and I also want to say that it can be a learning experience for all of those involved. We've had young people come up with issues that they want us to advocate and organize around solutions with areas that we don't have anyone at the table who knows that area very extremely well. And what that turned into was a learning experience for everyone. I think that as an adult ally, not only are you trying to help young people grow their skills, but you're also being very, very honest when they're asking you to do something that you don't know how to do. And that provides two opportunities. One, to show them that you don't have all the answers, so it's okay if they don't have all the answers, but also to help them see not only am I teaching you things, you're forcing me out of my comfort zone. And so this is a two-way learning experience, and I think that can be very powerful. I think if you are wanting to uplift young people, you need to be able to admit when you need support too. And so we haven't ever really stopped the campaign. We've had to do years of research to get to the point where we felt comfortable in releasing a campaign because it just wasn't our expertise. We weren't it. But the young people really, really have thoughtfully and strongly pushed for what they wanted. And because we know that's a clear issue, we've done the work to get ourselves ready. So I think that what I would say to organizations, you don't have to have all the answers, but that process of getting all the answers is something you could do alongside with young people. And you never know where y'all end up at the end.
Great, thank you. So I would like to ask our young folks, as we're getting to the wrap-up time, Ayoka, I will start with you. What are you excited for that's coming up? Like, we've talked about some of the campaigns you've been working on and are still working on, but what is sort of, if you had to say one thing that you're excited about, some work that you're doing going forward, what would that be?
Something that's actually about to come up this weekend. We are hosting a youth summit, and I think I'm so excited for that because we will be hearing new young people's voices and being able to write down ideas that we could use onto the next season coming up with our new campaign. So I think this youth summit that's on Saturday, I don't know if somebody could send the picture of the flyer in the chat, but I think I'm very excited for that and just to see the new things that we will be working on next season.
Swan?
Something like example. I'm excited. Well, right now I'm actually gonna be. What's happening? There's a lot going on. I'm not really too excited, but we're wrapping up our Summer Youth Organizing Institute. So for the summer, I was coordinating with a couple of my other co-workers to put on a 6 week long summer institute where we're giving youth the skills that we relationship building, community engagement, all of the skills that we do throughout the school year in our after school program, but wrapped up into 6 weeks. And we're going to wrap that up, and hopefully some of the youth that we had this summer will probably join Black Swan. So I'm really excited to start the school year and start the work, start getting back into the work about campaigns and leading the young people.
And let me ask a follow-up. I didn't give you or Ayoka the chance to answer this, so I'm going to ask you this. What would you tell sort of organizations who want to sort of launch youth organizing, following up on what Samantha and Christy said? anything that you would say, sort of what first steps they could take? What are the things that you think it's important for them to know as they want to engage youth sort of authentically in doing this and leading this work?
I think I'm gonna piggyback off Miss Samantha, and I think the first thing to do is to meet with them. I think you have to get an understanding of who they are, where they come from, everything they've been through, everything, and start the process of relationship building and build and bring. You have to have some type of relationship with each other to be able to work, to be able to correlate and work and be able to do the work. So I think meeting and talking and engaging is the first steps.
Great, thank you. Ayoka, I'm going to give you the last word to respond to that. Over to Tamara. Thank you for putting it in my chat.
Okay, can y'all hear me? Okay, I want to tie in on the relationship building. I think that's important. I think like the supporting, the engaging, the encouragement, like the nurturing part of that relationship with youth is very important for them to like feel welcome, feel comfortable of sharing and being able to be open with themselves and also having self-care along the youth.
Great, thank you. Thank all of our panelists, and Samantha has put the new Black Youth Agenda in the chat that they're going to be working on the campaigns that'll be coming from Black Swan Academy soon. They also information on the Youth Summit has been put in the chat. I want to thank you all for this great conversation. We've learned so much. I think it's just imperative that we remember how much we can learn from young people as we move up the age continuum, and making sure that we keep young people engaged in this work and centering their voices, their skills, and their experience in the work. I want to say thank you for that. And I'm going to turn it back over to Tamara to wrap us up.
And thank you so much, Sherry. Amazing facilitation as always. We appreciate you so much for always helping us with the work that needs to happen in DC. I'm gonna leave with something that Christy said. She said, if we want society to stop being broken, we need to get out of the way for our young people. They need to make the decisions because they got this. And Samantha said, we need to show up for young people, be their support, agitate, be there for them. We're part of the movement, but we should not be the ones leading. And those are things as an adult ally that stay with me, Ayoka, Sion. Those are things that we're hopeful that DC Fund can continue supporting with y'all. Everyone, thank you so much for being part of this panel. You can expect more conversations like this from us. If you haven't already, please sign up for our newsletter and our social media, as well as Black Swan Academy and DC Girls Coalition. Be there for them, keep tabs on them so that we can be there for their support. Please tell other people that Diverse City Fund's Fall 2023 grant cycle is now open and will be open until the 24th. Elizabeth, is that our 25th?
September 25th.
September 25th. That's right. And I'm gonna drop the link in the chat. We're hopeful that everyone can please share that with folks that are doing root cause work in Washington, D.C., so that we can continue supporting, resourcing, funding the folks like these amazing organizers that are doing very much very work. Thank you all. Appreciate you, and we'll stick around for a little bit, just to, have some community, but feel free to drop whenever you're ready for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.